We are back with another episode of Boots, Balls and Bras with myself, Fara Williams, and the amazing Anita Asante. Neat, before we go into the weekend's fixtures that's just happened, talk me through your week. You've been away with the under-23s. How was that camp?
Yeah, I was away with the under-23s. We had 2 games, one against the Netherlands, one against Portugal. It's actually a really enjoyable trip. We had a number of under-19s come into the group, and it was their first stint at the 23s, but 2 really good games. We got a draw against the Netherlands and a 1-0 win against Portugal to sort of kick off the 23s campaign. So quite a positive start. But yeah, I'm knackered.
I know, I was going to say, your voice sounds like it's going. Is that the coaching you've had for the whole week?
What about you?
Nothing. I've been away for a week, half term. A week in Spain, football escapes, a little soccer camp for the kids. Actually really good, apart from the weather. Had some rain, as I'm sure you've seen on the news, all the floods. So yeah, we weren't too far from where all the floods and that were. So, but a little bit of sun. I mean, I've got a little bit of a winter tan going on.
You just have to step outside, don't you?
I know, there's a little bit of sun. I normally catch it. I mean, I got the first and last day. Can't complain. But Neat, let's kick off the weekend.
Love that.
I wanna get into your old team, Aston Villa. I mean, I remember the opening day of the season, Friday night at Kings Meadow against Chelsea. They were 1-0 down at half time, and they turned up this unbelievable second half performance. And everybody started to talk about, are they actually not title contenders, but are they really going to compete for that kind of 4th to 6th spot? Now, 6 games in, no win under their belt. Kind of don't really see what's happening there. What's your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I was super hopeful for Villa this season. I thought I had so much positive noise around the new manager, Robert De Pauw. They've obviously got a really good squad as well with experience and youth. And like you said, the display against Chelsea was quite positive, but of course we didn't necessarily expect to win there, but just to see that they'd made progress and were like closing those margins. I don't know what it is. I feel like sometimes, you need just that one win and things start to click and you get some momentum, and they haven't managed to pick up positive results in terms of, they drew against, was it Leicester, a goalless draw, couldn't score in that game. And those are the games, the fixtures that you look at and you think, this is a Villa side that probably expects to get a result against a Leicester, for example. And then I think what happens is, and I'm sure you've been in these situations, is like doubt starts to creep in to the team. Is this new playing style working for us? Do I fit into it? Doubt about the way you're performing yourself. Why is it not happening? Why are we not scoring? Why are we conceding goals? And you hope that doesn't creep into the environment in general, that people don't start individuals getting negative. Do you know what I mean? And not staying positive and not seeing the small kind of progress they're making. But that's just from the outside looking in. I think that there's maybe a part of that is hindering or hampering them getting that win and moving forward.
Yeah, no, I just think when I look at their team, they're really top heavy, aren't they? In terms of like a lot of forward players, they're quite light in midfield, if I'm honest, and I think they're quite light at the back. So when I look at their team, they have a lot of players that maybe they can bring on from the bench and change a game. But in terms of kind of the build from the start, I think their back 4, if fit, solid back 4, can compete. I think they need to get that midfield right. I think they haven't yet got it right. They seem to be going with Missy Bo Kearns and obviously Jordan Nobbs. I've seen Kenza Darley, on the bench at the weekend. Lucy Staniforth hasn't started since the opening game. So, I mean, these are players in Lucy Staniforth and Kenza Darley that, in possession, if that's the style they're going to play, would be key to a kind of build phase. Lucy from deeper, and then obviously Kenza Darley in those pockets a little bit higher up in terms of being creative. So it's surprising in terms of personnel maybe that he's playing with, to try and get the kind of philosophy out of these players. Are they the right players that he's starting to kind of do what he's what he's setting out to do, which is build from the back, play through central areas, and then into your front players. I mean, we haven't seen much of Ebony Salmon. She doesn't really get a look in this Villa team. Somebody that is different to the strikers they have, doesn't really want to get involved in build-up play, kind of plays on the shoulder and use their pace and power to get beyond defenders. Is that a different kind of way that they might or should look at. I don't know. I'm just trying to think. Like, I don't think they've not had a consistent 11. You know, where you think actually they're building with this team and trying to get out the outcomes that they're, or, you know, whatever they're doing in the training week. It just seems to tinker a little bit with personnel, one or two, but it still makes a massive difference, I think.
Definitely. And it doesn't help chemistry, does it? Like the relationships on the pitch. If you're not getting a consistent run of minutes, you almost like that stop start to your season. And like you said, I think Kenza came out on the left midfield, you know, and for me, she's her strength is central in the middle, right? Where she can control things and she can marshal the game, she can set the tempo, she makes things happen. So I agree. I think maybe, you know, that's the thing they need to sort of look at and think, how can we get a consistent lineup and consistent performances? Because at the minute, you know, they were saying at the start of the season they want to finish sixth. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, you're way off that when I'm looking at some of the other teams and the progress that they're making. So yeah, I think it is quite concerning whatever's happening there at Villa.
I just think they need if they're going to play the way that they play, they need a midfielder that is comfortable at getting on the ball in front of the back line in those kind of tight areas to kind of dictate from deeper. Now, we know Jordan can do it. For me, her strengths are probably more, you know, box to box in terms of both, like linking, but a little bit higher up, so not too deep. Obviously, under pressure, I'm not sure if she's the right player to kind of sit in those deeper roles to get on the ball. I think Lucy Staniforth, I know can do that. Seen her do it over the years. But she's a player that obviously wants and plays better with somebody that puts trust in her to do that. So I don't know. And obviously we know Kenza plays as a 10. So for me, like, I think Lucy Staniforth, Jordan Nobbs and Kenza as a 3 would probably work better than what you know, Jordan and Missy Bo-Kearns, they're similar in terms of, you know, their characteristics that they're good at on the pitch. Their styles are, you know, they clash a little bit. They're both the same, want to come to the ball, want to run, want to get involved. I don't think that works. For me, I think when I watch their games, I think they get overrun in midfield areas. But that's just, you know, looking from the outside in. I don't know if that's something that they've identified, but it seems to be going with those two in the middle.
And maybe that's the problem, isn't it? And maybe that's the problem, Farah, like you're saying, that there's no designated like defensive midfielder, you know, like a pivot, like a Hasagawa that just is like, my responsibility is to link the thirds. They're all trying to do a bit of that, but no one's doing any of that as effectively as they can because they all have strengths in like box to box running, and that kind of traditional 8 doesn't sort of exist anymore. Well, it kind of does, but it isn't in the same fashion in a lot of the top teams anymore. And then it's like, then therefore, do they have like clarity in their roles? Do you know what I mean? Like, do they really understand what they're there and what they're trying to do? Or all of them thinking we have to all take responsibility for all these elements of the game, linking up play, creating, and all of that. And yeah, I just think you see that lack of kind of clear identity, perhaps, within that midfield structure. But yeah, I mean,
as players, needs you just to touch on it, just because you mentioned it, clarity. That is so important in terms of your roles and responsibility within a team, but obviously with that little bit of freedom. Like, I don't know if you've played before. I mean, I've played so many times in teams where you're put in the midfield and you're given a game plan, but kind of no clarity in your role and what's expected of you alongside X, Y, and Z. And then when you go into the game, as you mentioned there, that kind of fuzziness, it's there and it stays with you. It doesn't go away. Even if your strengths are, I don't know, to get on the ball, for example, you still can't think clearly about your responsibilities within there. Do you agree? Or sorry, when you coach, you do that with your 23s, for example. Do you give them like clear roles within? Because that'd be interesting.
Yeah, of course. I think they have clear. We have clear build principles. They know what pitches to look for and assess in terms of opposition press. So they know what positions they need to get into to support each other. And then they know in each third or phase of play who is responsible for trying to create width or who's trying to make those runs in beyond and who's going to control our rest defense. So the responsibilities are very clear. And the whole point is you're trying to take stress away from players so that they can make better decisions on the pitch and focus on their roles, but also that they can give good information to their teammates depending on how the game unfolds, both in attack and defense. And if you don't have clarity yourself and you're a bit fuzzy and you feel like you're chasing your tail in a game, you're less likely then to be even maybe communicating, one, and two, giving good information. Then it becomes that vicious cycle, doesn't it? So, yeah, I think clarity of roles, clarity of what you're trying to do in terms of breaking down opposition is so important. It's so key to a new team under a new manager in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I feel they've got to look at. As we mentioned at the beginning, that they're yet to pick up 3 points. They've had 2 draws, obviously Tottenham, and you mentioned there Leicester. For a team that's invested, because they've invested, in the summer they brought some players in as well. Obviously invested in a new manager.
Yeah.
There's been some big changes. Maybe it will take them time. I mean, who knows? But what we've seen so far, they're a little bit way off of their target, which I think was fifth. Was it? They said they wanted to finish around fifth this season.
Fifth, sixth, yeah. And I think they want momentum, right, before the international break. 100%. You don't want to be going in to the break in the same kind of position and everyone's going in like feeling demoralized, right? It's like, it's really key for them. Oh, it's painful, man, but we got to talk about Everton. And, there's no better person that knows the club, the club history, you've been part of it, of making it. How's it feel watching them this season? Like, struggle.
Yeah, do you know what needs? It's not just been this season. Even last season, I've obviously always, since leaving Everton, I've always kept an eye. And I think most of, the crop of players that did leave Everton always had one eye on them. It was a great club in terms of values and stuff that they had. The environment we created, or Mo Marley at the time created with the players. It was just a real good feel factor when you were there, playing for the club. How connected it was to the men's club. It was really good, and back then on a very minimal budget. Now the game's obviously shifted and changed since when we were there, and they had heavy investment 2-3 seasons ago, and I think that they threw everything kind of into it in terms of we want to get something out of it, and I don't know, but for me, Neats, I think that there's a couple of things. They now have, I think they brought a homegrown kid through, haven't they? The youngster that actually come on at half time. At the weekend, I thought she was very good.
MFSL.
Yeah, but in terms of kind of Everton for me was a club, and same with Liverpool in terms of having those homegrown players that kind of know what it means to play for the club. They don't have that anymore. There was a lot of those players when I played at Everton that were from the city, kind of knew what football meant to the city. It meant everything. You all know that. You're a big Liverpool fan. It means a lot. Football is everything to the Merseyside, whether you're red or blue. And so I feel like they've lost a lot of homegrown players and kind of haven't kind of kept that within the system, and obviously brought in a lot of overseas players and tried to change, the style. I think when I talk about styles needs, I mean, the manager, how he's getting away with, one, still having a job, given the results he's getting, but two, I mean, I heard his interview after the game, and he actually thought he played well. I don't know where he thought. I mean, he's talking about what stats tell you that they have the fourth best defence in the league, but you're sitting bottom of the table. So whether the facts and stats tell you you're the fourth best defence, you can't sit on that.
Conceded 5 on the weekend.
Exactly. I mean, it must have dropped into the bottom 8 in terms of defensive best defence. Must be 8th now, because after the game I heard his interview saying that factually on stats they have the fourth best defence. Blows my mind that's what you look at as a manager when you're sitting bottom of the table. But I mean, you'll see some of the goals that Chelsea had scored. Defensively, they are so poor. They play out from the back. They get pinched on every game. It's a consistent theme. They don't seem to be able to work a pattern. They want to play this build football, right? But they don't seem to build anywhere over the halfway line. I genuinely, I've been saying it for the last couple of seasons. They play along the back line. They're quite expansive in terms of when they get the centre halves get the ball. They're really split. Fullbacks are really high and wide. They leave centre mids isolated when the ball goes in there, and those transitions, they're absolutely exposed. And I think of the goals they've conceded, not just this season, but last season, have all come from defensive mistakes or midfield, or should I say build phase from defensive areas. So something needs to change, whether it be manager, whether it mean play a little bit more direct in terms of style. Something for me has to change within that team if they are to get results. I mean, I've seen at times Van Havermaet, who is naturally a centre midfielder, playing centre half alongside what's her name, Megan Finnegan. There's no pace there. There's nothing. So when people get beyond that, although they might be comfortable in those build phases, when defenders get beyond that, there's no pace there. There's no recovery lines. I'm disappointed with where the club's at, because as I said, they were a club for many years that was competing, and you kind of thought when they invested a few years back, they might really kick on, and they haven't. They've actually spiraled the opposite way.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, Farah. I think it's like a sad thing to see, because I think when I think of Everton, the one thing I could always say about them is that they would be a team that was hard to beat. Do you know what I mean? A gritty team, and especially out of possession, hard. They will make a game difficult for you. They could still cause problems in possession in terms of transition. Good players that could score goals. I look at this Everton team, and they're hard and fast on playing out from the back, which is fine if that's your philosophy, but not if you're not successful at breaking pressure, right? First and foremost, like, you're not breaking pressure, you're not breaking into the midfield third. So perhaps you have to start thinking a bit differently, a bit pragmatically, playing beyond the lines. I think the other thing is, I think it's hard for players who are getting shoehorned into different positions every week. Like you said, Van Hammervaart is probably, he's thinking, yes, they've had a couple injuries. I think we have to say that too. Ghali's out, Gabara's out. But because she's a midfielder, I don't know if he's thinking, because she's a midfielder, she should technically be comfortable on the ball. I'm going to use her as a centre-back to help our build, But there's two things with that. There's also knowing that there's risk when you're in the back line, having the ball at your feet under high pressure. You've got to be comfortable in it. So there's that challenge. The other thing is, there are times where the first goal, I think Fiatriki Sari drops in and she receives the ball, and she could probably roll out of pressure. But it's also a bit of naivety, like taking too many touches around your six and getting pinched. Ueki did it first game, with Brighton, scored 2 goals just pickpocketing players in their half. So I'm also like, are the players learning? Are they learning from these errors? Because we're seeing a consistent pattern of repetitive behaviours on the pitch where you're like, we've struggled. Send it long sometimes. And look at the difference, like you mentioned, Emma Bissell, the youngster, comes in, 22 years old, causing all sorts of problems, stretching defences, running behind, working her socks off, gaining territory, gaining corners. There's nothing wrong with playing that way, in my opinion. If that's going to get you success, and that's going to breed confidence into the team and also take risk out of the team, why not do that against certain teams? Yeah. And then when you can play teams that you think maybe are closer to their levels, play a little bit more expansive. But the position they're in now, I just think it's frustrating to watch, because I've been a player in a team like Villa where we were promoted and we struggled for a number of games. And it was like, we can't try to be Barcelona now. We need to pick points up. And you've got to find realistic ways to do that and put the right personnel in the right positions that are going to be effective at that. And like you said, you can't just keep referring to stats. The stats say you're at the bottom of the table, not not winning games. And as we know, the margins are so small in this league, both from the top and the bottom. So yeah, I think they just need to change what they're doing in terms of their playing style, because at the moment it's just killing them.
No, I would agree, and that's the thing, and I think that's what frustrates me sometimes, is when you look at teams that are trying to play what everybody seems to liken, the beautiful game, playing out from the back, high risk football. You've got to, one, have personnel that are comfortable in doing it. Two, as you mentioned, with your 23s, in terms of having those patterns of play, so that if in doubt, there is an option. So you have that decision of X, Y, and Z, along with having that freedom of kind of playing what you see, right? But I feel like we get stuck in this, let's play out from the back, it's a must do. Like, how many teams play with a high line? Pretty much every team play with a high line. So every team Everton come up against, I can guarantee you, Everton going up against any opposition in the WSL, they're not going to play with a deep line. Why? Because they don't think Everton can play beyond them. Why? Because they think Everton will play out, and so they're going to play high and they're going to press. So what does that tell you? The space is where? In behind, use it. Use your centre forward who's pacey.
Exactly.
Get them behind and then start to drop the opposition off. so that you can potentially play the game you want to play. But too much of football nowadays is played within their own half, very high risk. And then obviously we've seen a consequence of, goals being conceded at Everton. But they're in a position now, needs that the club really do need to look at, because they are sitting bottom of the table. You can't see where points are coming from. Other teams around them are actually looking better than them, and obviously have added to the team. You look at West Ham, that's sitting around them. They've obviously heavily invested in the summer. Everton didn't really. I think they signed one big player. Everton invested in the summer, Aston Villa invested heavily in the summer. And they're the two teams that are around them. We obviously know Crystal Palace are newly promoted, but they've picked up a win. And I think picking up a win is massive in this league.
Yeah.
And that's something that Everton,
huge,
can't do seem to do at the minute. So I don't know. They definitely have to be looking at it. There has to be pressure there, because look, we can't afford for Everton to get relegated out of our league. It will be literally, I don't even have words to even think about what would happen if they were to go down, because I don't expect them to be a team that will rebuild and come back up in terms of investment, which will be sad. Crazy. But neat, let's go on a more positive, right? Because we've spoke about some relegated teams and both of our former teams, which is quite depressing to talk about when they're not doing so well. But let's talk about a team that is doing well, and that's Brighton. They picked up another win at the weekend, a 1-0 win. Nikita Paris getting the header. I mean, another great header, by the way. But in terms of them having a serious challenge for that kind of fourth spot with Man United, or even third, because they're getting results. Do you think they're serious contenders in terms of that third, fourth spot, or do you think they're kind of going through a phase where a little bit of luck on their side and they're picking up results? How do you see it?
I think we still need to see them have a test, right? Like when they meet a Chelsea or a City.
Do they have Arsenal this weekend coming up?
I think, they got Arsenal this weekend. So I think we need to see them have a test against one of those teams. And then I can really back my opinion, if you know what I mean. Then I can really go, they're definitely contenders. I think that the way they're performing and their form suggests that they will be. They're full of confidence. I really enjoy watching them play. I enjoy seeing Nikita happy, scoring goals, especially with her head. And I think they'll back themselves. I think they're quietly going about their business, but it feels like they've had a strategy in place and it's starting to come together. Are you confidently saying they are title contenders or top 3 contenders?
I think they're top 6. I have to say, I think they're definitely top 6 contenders. I still sit on the fact that I think Arsenal will finish third, even given all of what's happened with them in terms of Jonas Eidevall leaving, and kind of still haven't got a manager in place. But I think they'll really be competing with United. If I'm honest, I think United, a team I haven't spoke about. I'll get your opinion on them in a minute, but I've actually quite liked watching United this year, and for the reason they're prepared to do things differently. For so many seasons we've watched Man United playing out from the back and trying to build and being risky at times. And this season there's been a change. They're prepared to go long and in behind and kind of release a little bit of pressure and gain territory and play in the opposition's half, which I've really enjoyed. And I think they picked up a massive point at the weekend against Arsenal. I think this time last year they'd probably have lost that game, given the amount of dominance in terms of possession and chances that Arsenal had. So I think the fact that they able to stay in a game, I think the two centre halves, I think Mary Earps and Millie Turner, in terms of their performances, I think they together that kind of relationship has been really, really good. So do I see Brighton finishing fourth? No, probably not. But as I said, if they continue the performances that they've had so far, I mean, they definitely give themselves a great shout. But what do you think? Who do you think around fourth? United, Liverpool? We obviously saw Liverpool did it last year. Brighton?
Well, I think right now, obviously, United are doing really well. They've only conceded 2 goals. They look really strong defensively. They've got a relatively sound squad in terms of injuries. Obviously, you got Grace Clinton firing as well, which has helped a lot. And I think the traditional top 4 will still be the traditional top 4, like you say. But I would like to see Brighton break into it, because I just think it's interesting and it's exciting for the league. I think their form suggests that they could do it. We'll see. Like I said, I still think they need a big test to really show what level they're at in terms of competing with those teams. But in terms of Man United, what I thought was really good about the last game is that, like you said, the relationships are developing. Tullis-Joyce, the goalkeeper, what a revelation she's been as well. Because to be fair, at the beginning I was like, Mary Earps is gone. This is going to be tough for Man United. Like, you're spining your team, a big leader. But the way she's slotted into that role, the confidence, the way she's coming out claiming crosses and everything, you can feel that defensive line just feels very secure and they trust each other. And Millie Turner was exceptional. Mary Letitia played well too, but even in possession, her spraying diagonal balls left and right just looked like a really assured team. And yes, Arsenal did dominate parts of the game in terms of possession, but the way that Man United were able to suffer a little bit more in those situations shows, I think, that they have a bit more to their character, hopefully this season, in terms of that. So yeah, I think we can't rule them out because they've had a great start really to the season. But yeah, I had to mention the goalkeeper because she has been one of the surprises. And I think Aoife Mannion coming back to the team, she will get her levels, back. I think she's not like 100% there, but she played okay. And we know her mentality. And I think if you've got mentality of players like that in your team, there's no way that you can't get success, in my opinion. She will definitely be one of those driving standards as well. So yeah, yeah, I think I'm eating my words, aren't I? Because from the first episode we did, I gotta give them credit. Gotta give them credit.
No, I agree. I think yeah, you're right to give Tullis-Joyce a shout out because I think she has been the difference. I think, and I think, and I'm saying that in terms of the style of play. She's prepared to claim it, go long, make decisions. She's quite authoritative for somebody so young as well and new to the team.
Yeah.
First season starting, obviously we know she come last year, but to start a run of games and be so authoritative in terms of when and where she wants to play out, what type of risk she wants to take. As you mentioned there, she don't mind dominating the 6-yard box in terms of crosses that come in. And she has that real presence for somebody, as I said, inexperienced in the league and so young. So, yeah, I think she's been a big difference for this Man United team. But I don't know. I mean, Nita, heard you talk about it on the women's football show at the weekend with Naden. Obviously, Naden being a sky blue, isn't he? And obviously, you put your money on Chelsea. I don't see. I mean, we're talking about teams that could compete, but I don't see anybody currently beating Chelsea in terms of the title. I mean, Bonpastor coming in. I mean, first manager to win 6 on the bounce in all competitions.
Yeah.
So a fantastic start, and she's so casual about it, isn't she? And I think the players have really taken on board new information and kind of adapted to not massively adapted, but adapted. And I think Baltimore, who she signed as a wide left player, she's played her at fullback pretty much from the second game of the season. I think she's been fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree with Farah. I think Sonia is a breath of fresh air, isn't she, for the league? Like, I just love her energy and her personality from the sidelines. Chelsea are just ruthless. I mean, what else can we say about them? They just keep scoring goals, and their goal difference margins are just ridiculous. That they're always going to put pressure on City and Arsenal to respond. And I just think that I look at them and they always outperform their XG, and that's critical for a team like Chelsea who are saying we want to compete on all fronts as well. I just don't know anyone who can match their ability to like adapt and the frightening depth that they have on the team. We're not even talking about. I've not talked about Lauren James in a few weeks now. I don't think. And that shows you how strong a squad and team they have that we were getting excited about Ritten Canarid. Aggie Beaver Jones is playing well. Ramirez had that fantastic game against Arsenal. There's so many players that can step up in this team and deliver. Guru Wrighton, Erin Cuthbert, you know, pinching balls in the box, scoring, breaking up play. It's a madness. Tell me, like, and then you got Hannah Hampton, who could just get you from a defence to attack in one ball. You know, it's scary. I think how good they've been, to be honest. Which brings me to Arsenal, really. Like, you know, again, dominated possession against United for large parts of the game, still lacking that clinicalness. What is it, Farah? What is it that's going to like take them to that just next level? That's going to really have us confidently say that they can go toe to toe with a Chelsea or a Man City.
Do you know what, Nita? I look at them every week and I can't actually pinpoint what it is. They frustrate me. I feel like, do you know what? I actually feel like as well, in terms of their possession intensity is slowed down quite a lot. Normally they play with quite good intensity in terms of with the ball. I feel like when I watch them sometimes, they still allow teams to get back into shape with slow possession, which isn't helping them. I think they've got a couple of players that aren't performing to the levels they need to be performing to. And I think when you have more than one or two that aren't performing to, 8 out of 10s a week, you're going to struggle. They create chances. I mean, their goal was well worked. I think the ball in and the Fox's little darting run, and then obviously the cutback for Russo. But it was a scruffy goal in terms of, the cutback wasn't clean, and then obviously the execution from Russo wasn't clean, but it went in. So the positioning and the kind of movement for that was good. I just don't know why they're so panicky in front of goal. I don't know why they overplay in front of goal and in wide areas when, you can put early balls in. They seem to want to chop back and they seem to want to make another pass. I feel like they slow their own attacks down. And that's what I'm talking about when we're used to seeing Arsenal in terms of that intensity in possession and really hurt teams. I feel like they cause their own problems in terms of the intensity they're playing with, but then slowing down that intensity even more in the final third in terms of their decision making. So, yeah, I mean, they've got players that we know are capable of competing and whether it be winning trophies or really competing top three. But I don't know, do they need a change of personnel in terms of who's starting? Maybe do they take that risk of going, actually, let me freshen it up with some new players and kind of let's go with this for a little bit. But you've seen, look, Beth Mead's been on the bench, but I actually think she's a difference maker when she's been coming on. She kind of brings that little bit of energy and aggression and feistiness that they're missing. We know that Katie McCabe brings that. I much prefer Katie McCabe higher up the pitch than I do at fullback. But they're trying to get players on the pitch. Obviously, Catley, they're trying to get a left fullback rather than left back. Then take that risk and go, actually, if I think Catley's the best left back we've got, and I think Katie McCabe's the best left of the front three, let's play them both. And if it means keeping out one of our big name players, whether it be Ford, Beth Mead, even Caldenti, one of them coming out, then so be it. If you feel like that's going to balance your team and get success in terms of wins and obviously more goals, because right now they're not scoring enough goals or creating, in my opinion, enough clear cut. So they're creating chances, but definitely nothing clear cut. I can't remember United keeper Joy. I can't remember her having to make a worldie of a save other than the goal that went in. There was a header, I think, from Russo that she collected, but apart from that, I can't remember off the top of my head where she was tested to the point that you thought, oh, if she didn't save that, it would have gone in the back of the net. So I don't know. I think they've lost a little bit of energy in the middle, if I'm honest. And then, as I say, I think at times they're just a little bit too casual in their possession. I thought, as much as they had a lot more ball than Man United, I actually thought the game was really even. I know I heard people saying, Arsenal will be disappointed to come away with a point. I didn't think they did enough to come away with 3 in terms of creating that kind of, you can go off entries into the final third, you can go off possession, but in terms of clear cut, I actually don't think they did anything more than what United did to actually warrant the 3 points. So they're just disappointing. They really are. They're really frustrating. Can I ask you something before I get your opinion?
Yeah.
Why do you think Kafaji don't play?
Because maybe I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, it's a good question because I really want to see her play. I want to see her get more minutes. I think I don't know if it's because she's a risk player. Like, she does things off the cuff You know, she likes skills. She likes to commit players, defenders. And I don't know, because Arsenal are playing in this more kind of, like you said, slowing their attacks down in the final third and going for more control in the final third, that they don't want to use her in longer periods of the game where maybe there will be a couple of, turnovers, whatever. But no risk without reward, right? Like, you need goals. I think you need a player like that who does things.
Look at Jess Park at City. She's that player that
Yeah,
takes risks centrally and wants to beat players and whatever. Kafaji reminds me of somebody similar. And we've seen, given Jess Park a run of games and the confidence to do it, she gets better in doing it in the
yeah,
right areas. And I mean, she's probably one of the best performers in the WSL at the minute in terms of those consistent performances. So, given a run of games, I think Kafaji could be that player that is the difference from Arsenal.
I agree. And she just offers something different. There's not a player, I don't think, in the squad that's like her. So, you want to see what she can do, what relationship she can build on the pitch. But going back to your point about them slowing down their attacks, what frustrates me is, like, I agree. I think they're losing a bit of energy in the midfield, and that dynamism that you need when you're playing in transition is that I've banged down about it before, that tempo change. Do you know what I mean? It's fine, like, you build, you get in the mid third, but then you're like, now we're going into attack. We've got to change the speed of things, whether that's the ball or movement ahead of the ball. Like, everything is just like kind of predictable. Like, I know Ford is really good on the ball, 1v1 and dribbling, but sometimes they got to make runs off the ball, right? They got to make those like darting out to in runs beyond defenses just to get the centre backs, the full backs thinking about, oh my God, what space do I need to occupy? Do I need to step into this space? Do I need to drop behind? Everything they want. Every player seems to want the ball at their feet, in my opinion. Like, do you know what I mean? Except for Russo, who will stretch run, who will come short to feet. But she needs opposite movement as well. And the wide players, I think, can offer that, the wide forwards, by just making these runs, even if they don't get the ball, just doing it more often than not. Because the first half, they had a lot of joy down the left-hand side with McCabe. Like you said, when she's higher up, she has impact. Teams worry about what she can do with the ball, her deliveries, cutting inside, whatever it is. But they didn't use it well enough, right? And it was that one opportunity that they got the break down the right-hand side. But for me, it's the tempo change and runs off the ball that I don't see enough of from Arsenal, that will maybe lead them to getting more critical, clear chances.
You talk about it, Nate. I feel like they don't, in the final third, play with any purpose in terms of those purposeful movements, purposeful combinations or whatever. It's just, okay, we've arrived and we'll just wait. And that's what I mean about slowing it down. I mean, you mentioned they played with an overload on that left-hand side, but every time they just come back in centrally. So why try and overload and unbalance one part of the pitch, but don't use it?
Yeah. Why create it in the first place?
It was really confusing to kind of watch. I was like, okay, so they've got Caldenti coming in. Obviously, they've got Kate McCabe really high up. Obviously, they're building in a back three, extra midfielder. They didn't use it. They didn't hurt them with it. As much as Man United did suffer a couple of times. Defenders had to defend, which they're there to do, and defend crosses. They didn't hurt them. I didn't see them kind of getting in between runs between, as you mentioned, their fullback centre halves to really try and hurt the back line. They didn't. So, I mean, there's a lot that needs to change. I mean, we know there's rumours about, we know obviously the manager's interim until the November break, isn't it? The international.
Yeah, 5 more games.
And there's obviously rumours that Nick Cushing will potentially come there. I mean, we won't go into it. We'll talk more if he does, but that would be an unbelievable sign in terms of, we saw how good he was at Manchester City when he was there and what he did with those group of players. And I think, he certainly would change this Arsenal team for the better if it was to be him.
Yeah, he's got experience of winning, hasn't he, as well? And, he's a possession-based sort of manager, so he'd probably fit the philosophy quite easily. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it is him stepping in, and maybe Renee Slegers will stay on. Who knows? I mean, she seems to enjoy working at the club, but time will tell, I guess.
Time will tell. But that kind of wraps up, doesn't it, Neats, the weekend. We don't want to touch too much on it because we want to give our opinion if it is to happen when it happens. But we're going to look forward to the weekend's game and just give some predictions. So So I don't know if you want to reel them off, Neat, and we'll do a little accumulator.
Game week 7 predictions for the WSL. Arsenal versus Brighton. Arsenal at home.
Arsenal win.
What are we saying?
I'm saying Arsenal win.
You're saying Arsenal win. You know what? I'm gonna go for a draw.
I knew he was gonna say that.
I'm gonna go for a 1-1. 1-1. Sit in the middle, draw.
Okay.
Man City Spurs.
Man City win.
Yeah, Man City win for me as well. Liverpool Chelsea.
Oh, do you know what? This is always. I mean, I think Chelsea will win. But this is always a sticky fixture for Chelsea, or has been in the past. We saw the result last year, 4-3, unbelievable game. But yeah, I think Liverpool got quite a few injuries at the minute. And I think that the form that Chelsea are in, yeah, Chelsea win.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chelsea win, but I think it's going to be a difficult game, as you said. Liverpool never make it easy for them. Palace Everton.
Oh, I'm going with the Palace win. I think they've got more to them than Everton.
I go with the Palace win too. I think Stengel's due a goal, so maybe this will be the game. West Ham Leicester.
Do you know what? Draw.
I think it's a tough one actually. I think both teams will be wanting to go for the win. I might go with the West Ham win. They need it. They both need it, but I think they had a few goals in them this weekend. Maybe they can replicate that performance and limit mistakes. Man United versus Aston Villa.
Man United win.
Yeah, I'll go with the United win as well. That's all the teams.
Yeah. Couple of fans questions. Have we got some fans questions this week? We've been waiting for these fans questions. They don't seem to be putting them in.
Yeah, it's true. We got a lot this week. Nish 1975 says, do you think Russo would be more prolific alongside Steiner?
Difficult one. I think she could play as a 1 or a 2. I think it's more in terms of chances that are created and kind of playing to her strength. You know, I think you've got to recognise if you want Russo in build-up, you need someone that's, you know, prepared to run beyond her. And if you don't want her in build-up, then she works her back shoulders and you give her chances in and around the box, and I think she'll get goals. I think, you know, in terms of her finishing, she can certainly finish. Now it's about what are those opportunities she's getting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all about the team philosophy, isn't it? What do they try to do in those phases of play? And also, sometimes it's like Steena's so good at exploiting space because she's just quick. She gets a lot of opportunities, but isn't necessarily clinical with them. Could they just utilize her getting opposition defenses tired? Like, you know, running and beyond and creating space for a Russo, because they often bring her on as, like, nowadays as a sub.
I just don't think Arsenal have a 2 that can sit in the midfield as a 2 to allow them to play with 2 up front. So I don't think they have personnel that can do that and play with a 4-4-2. So, or 3-5-2 unless they're prepared to go 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 kind of. But yeah, I still don't know how you'd get 2 of them when you look what's behind it and kind of who will come out. Because then that would mean you're obviously going to lose one of your creative midfielders.
Kiki CHR. Imagine that you're still playing. What WSL team would you want to play for right now? What a great question that is.
Chelsea.
What a great question that is.
It has to be Chelsea. Sorry. Wish I ended my career there.
I mean, I'd have to go back to Chelsea for sure. Because I want to play WSL, I want to play Champions League, I want to play FA Cup, I want to play League Cup because I'm greedy like that. So
Is that all our questions for the week, Neats?
That's a roundup.
That's a roundup. The BBB is done for match week 7, isn't it? So no, we're going into match week 7, aren't we? So let's hope there's some real good games that we can really dissect come next week. I'm sure that Liverpool one will be one, and obviously we just spoke about Brighton Arsenal, an interesting one. Keep an eye out for. But other than that, guys, thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment below.
Comment.
All of them. We're getting it. But yeah, cool. We'll be back next week. Thanks, Neats. Have a good week.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back every week throughout the WSL season, so tell your mates and all get involved. If you've got a point you think we should discuss, or you want to put us on the spot with a question you want answering, comment down below on this episode or on our social media channels. Make sure you leave us a review and follow Boots, Balls and Bras to never miss an episode.